I've always known my husband and his high school best friend, Ria, were incredibly tight. Ria actually played matchmaker for us back when we met at our fashion design course, so there was never any reason to doubt their friendship. By the time we finished our course in college, Ria and I had become good friends too. Our bond grew stronger after I started dating Josh, who is now my husband. Looking back, I realize Ria and I did share some common ground, but now it seems like she was just using it to get closer to Josh. And honestly, the more I think about it, the less surprising it seems that Josh might have been doing the same thing, using me to be closer to Ria. My husband and I have had a typical relationship. There weren't any red flags. Our communication seemed pretty smooth. We had a good sex life and yada yada. Honestly, if I didn't have this conversation with my husband and Ria, I don't think I would have ever known what all was going on behind my back. I'm not sure if this was because of how good they were at hiding all this or if I was just plainly blind and ignorant, but yeah, I didn't really know so much was going on behind my back. Well, my husband and I started dating when he and I were around 17, got engaged at 20, and got married at 21. It's been 6 months since we've been married, and ever since we got engaged, my husband and Ria have been working on renovating the house we bought together. This house was huge, so I thought it was pretty understandable that it took them about a year to renovate it. Between that time period, Josh and I got married too. Our marriage was blissful, at least to me, because I thought it brought us even closer than we were. Right after our marriage, I saw changes in Josh. He had become more communicative about his feelings, fears, and thoughts towards our relationship. Although as a parent, thoughts toward our relationship would often be negative, like him often discussing how he thought our marriage wouldn't work without any solid reason. Red flag, I know. I still went on along with our relationship because I love this man. For his and my love, both for each other and this relationship, would heal everything. Unfortunately, I was soon to realize that the love only came from one side and was going to be unrequited love, making already hollow from the inside love come crashing down. You see, 6 months into our marriage, and our house was done being renovated. I was so happy, so I invited Ria and some of my husband's other friends over for a meal because of the contributions they had made into the renovations of our house. It was a nice Saturday when everyone came along with their wives. We had a nice meal where we talked about me and my husband's future plans and answered some other questions you'd expect people to ask a newly married couple. Things started to seem off as questions started rolling in about our house. The wives were asking me about how I was planning to decorate my bedroom, how I was planning to do my closet, yada yada. I was happy to answer these questions because it felt nice to see someone interested in what I was doing. However, this wasn't the case for my husband. This man looked like he was getting increasingly uncomfortable, and not just him, but Ria too. The uncomfortableness was so much that it was quite visible. Quite a few people asked my husband and Ria if everything was okay. Well, of course, they said it was when nothing was okay. The day went on as obviously there was nothing we could really do unless they opened up to us. And oh boy, when they did, I wasn't able to help them. Well, you see, this one meal turned into my husband's friends and their families staying over until late. I didn't have a problem with that because these people were really chill. Well, we all eventually started drinking by the time it was evening, and this is when things really started going downhill. No one was crazy drunk, just a little buzzed, I'd say, except for, guess who, my husband and Ria. The two got drunk out of their minds within the span of an hour. Now that I think about it, I feel like it was completely intentional because the two pulled me aside and told me that we needed to talk. Yes, not just my husband and I, but Ria too needed to be there. Well, I instantly had a weird feeling in my gut like something was gonna go wrong. So, obviously, having a bit too much to do after a long time and scrolling too much through Reddit, I decided to start the audio recorder on my phone and get into the guest room. And boy, was it worth it. So I'm sitting there as Rhea and my husband fumble to get their words in order. They start off by confessing how they both started liking each other right around the time the two met me. This alone was shocking to me, shocking enough that I started crying. Well, then they continued by saying that they didn't know what to do, how they were scared, yada yada. It didn't make sense to me though, since there wasn't much to be scared about here. If my husband would date me, then he would date Rhea too. After expressing this through anger, Josh drops this bombshell on me. Rhea is his cousin. I hadn't known this because her parents were cut off from the family because of some issues. I was completely bewildered. None of it added up for me. How could this guy who's been best friends with this girl for years and claims to love her turn out to be her cousin? I sat there in utter shock. I suppose Rhea and Josh interpreted my silence as a sign that I was starting to understand. That's when they laid out their terms for me. It turns out they expect me to accept their relationship and let them carry on, all while I'm married to Josh. According to them, we should make the best of this situation and share Josh. Letting Rhea have him for a couple of days of the week, and then letting me have him for a couple of days of the week. Not only that, I should also make separate living arrangements while the two have their time together. So, according to these people, I should move out of the house I paid for. This wasn't all. Y'all, Rhea fought telling me the fact that they made a separate room for themselves instead of the walk-in closet that I wanted for myself for their time because, of course, they wouldn't want to make me uncomfortable while they have sex together in my house. I was disgusted and shocked. It took me a couple of minutes to get the words out of my mouth. But I told them to be ready to see me in court because there was no way that I would move into the house. I also told them to pack it up and leave the house as soon as possible because there was no way I wanted to deal with them. Not sure why, but this reaction shocked them. They started to berate me for not being considerate, telling me how I am judgmental because I can't accept true love, and how this true love will always win over our documented marriage. I wish them luck, especially Rhea, who was running her mouth too much throughout the entire ordeal, before going out and telling my husband's friends to leave and that they could now hold their get-togethers at Rhea's place. The room kind of fell silent. I guess everyone was hoping for more explanation, but I had no energy. So eventually, everyone awkwardly left along with Josh and Rhea. I just sat there stunned in the cold, empty room, reconsidering everything for hours until the texts started rolling in, not just from my husband's friends, but also his family calling me a jealous wife and a bad host. It broke my heart more. I'm not sure what my next move should be here. I want to sue my husband for the wrongly done renovations on my house and also divorce him ASAP. The house that we currently live in and the house we are going to move into are both under my name, gifted to me by my parents. What should I do here? Was I wrong for reacting the way that I did? ATA for telling my husband and his affair partner that I was going to drag them to court for having an affair and then kicking him and his friend out of the house. It's been 2 weeks since everything went down and a lot has happened since. I first decided to meet up with my mother-in-law, who wanted to talk. My mother-in-law and I have always had a great relationship. She was like a second mother to me after my mom had passed away. So after everything that went down, she wanted to get my side of the story too. So we met up at her house and discussed the entire situation. I showed her the recording, and it was shocking to me that she wasn't surprised at this. Like it all, with a couple of minutes of silence and seeing the nervousness on my face, she started off by telling me how Rhea's parents were cut off from the family for scamming a couple of relatives out of money. The only reason why Rhea was allowed into the family was because of the close bond she and Josh had always shared. Eventually, until one day, they were caught kissing. Obviously, they were told to not repeat their actions. And after that, they became pretty distant with each other, and everyone just thought that that was it. It was around this time that Josh met me as well, and his family was happy that he finally left his chase behind Rhea, but who knew he had never stopped to begin with? Well, this all gave me the confirmation that this man is not worth anything. I instantly went to a lawyer and filed a lawsuit for the renovation of the house as well as a divorce. And I know for a fact this lawsuit isn't going to look good on my husband's company, which specializes in house renovations. Currently, he hasn't contacted me, nor has Rhea or any of his friends, which is good because I don't want to deal with them at all. Hi everyone, I'll keep you posted as things develop. I reached out to this subreddit for advice about my husband, who was having an affair with his cousin. Their condition for me moving into their house was that they could continue the affair. Given the short duration of our marriage, our divorce was straightforward. But boy, the lawsuit against his company was messy. It wasn't long at all since. Like I said, I had the recording of them admitting what they had done, but the resistance coming from Josh's side took a while. At the end, I won at both and got paid to refix the damages done. As for Josh and Rhea, they got cut off by both their families and friends. It was his mom who went out of her way to tell everyone what truly took place instead of Josh's sugar-coated version, where apparently I had kicked them out of my house because I was jealous of their friendship. Once his friends and family realized what had actually happened, not only were they disappointed but disgusted at the nature of their relationship. So currently, the both of them share a rundown apartment after Josh got kicked out of his own business by his business partners, the friends who helped us renovate the apartment, all the while finding out that Rhea had been cheating on him the whole time. My life truly turned upside down within the span of 8 months. But I think I feel proud of myself and ready to face the world with a new perspective after everything that happened. Thank you all for your amazing support. NTA. Rhea and Josh are crazy and entitled. Tell everyone what happened before Josh tells a completely fake version of events. You've been done so wrong, and you deserve your justice. I hope karma gives it to you. NTA. This is some Sweet Home Alabama BS. Please get yourself STD tested and kick these people out of your lives along with the people who think you're wrong for reacting the way that you did. For context, I, 33M, have been pretty much messed up since my childhood. I married the love of my life, and together we have one child, 7F. Sometime after she was born, my mental health began to decline, and I was later diagnosed with PTSD, clinical depression, and an anxiety disorder. To spare all the details, I got help and was medicated. Everything was great for a few years until the meds didn't seem to work any longer. 15 months ago, I started messing around with street drugs, and that quickly got out of control. By March, I at my worst. I tried to do it alone because I hated the way the drugs were making me feel, and I couldn't watch my family suffer any longer. April 28 was my last time ever using it. I packed my bags and headed off to rehab on May 2nd. When I get 90 days, my counselor made the recommendation of visiting home for 24 hours. I thought it was perfect timing since in 4 days it would be my daughter's 7th birthday. I knew the party details ahead of time. I thought it would be a nice surprise for me to show up considering everyone knew how determined I've been to do right. On the way home, I stopped at 2 stores to buy gifts and get them packed. That took a little longer than expected. In addition to the 1.5-hour drive home, I arrived 15 minutes after the party started. My daughter immediately ran into my arms. My wife appeared stunned, then gave me a hug. My mother-in-law peeled out from around the corner and said, "No, we're not having this." My wife walked away with her mother briefly. When she returned, she asked me to take a drug test, and I agreed. I figured she had one on hand, but she didn't. She instructed me to leave and return with at least a 20-panel test. I was at the house for less than 10 minutes when my father-in-law pretty much pushed me out of the house and shut the door in my face. I went to the nearest Walgreens, but they only had a 12-panel test. My wife said to try CVS, and I found the same thing there, but they directed me where I could find such a test. Just as I was leaving the third store with the test in hand, my wife called to say I took too long and I'm not allowed at the party. I was crushed. She didn't want to hear it and hung up. I drove straight back to rehab and was pretty down all day. I called her the next morning to ask how the party went and if our daughter liked what I got her. She ended up telling me I had given them red flags because I showed up late and unannounced. She said, had I asked her if I could come, things would have been different. Monday morning, when I got access to my phone, my father-in-law had left a text saying just because my wife had told me all about the party details didn't mean I was actually invited. Ever since, I feel like I majorly messed up forever going in the first place. I think it's great you've gotten serious about getting better. However, in this whole surprise thing, you only considered how this would affect you and how great your surprise would be. You gave no thought to the multitude of emotions this would cause for your wife or daughter. Do you realize the toll that this has taken on your wife? Street drugs for a year, you being gone for 3 months, and her going at it alone. What financial burden has this been on the family? Did her parents step up and help? Do you know any of this? Why were you not communicating your treatment with your wife? This was self-centered, and I don't blame your wife for wanting a drug test before you're around your daughter again. I'm a 25-year-old female and have a tricky relationship with my family of origin. My father died when I was 5, and from what I remember, he was probably the better member of my family. My mom hated me always. I looked the most like that, so I figured that's why. I was the baby of the family with 3 older sisters who all took after Mom for hating me, and I heard my whole childhood that I was ugly and would never find a guy to love me. This post is about my sister Grace, who I have the worst relationship with. I got married at 20 and was so lucky to join an amazing family. My husband's mom especially is the best. She came from a sucky family too, so she gets it, and she has embraced me and her 3 other kids-in-law as her own kids. So has father-in-law. They are people I would gladly call my parents any day. Mother-in-law is extra special to me, though. There's just something so caring about her. She never pushes herself on anyone, but she will be there for you at the drop of a hat. She has supported me more trying to get an education than anyone in my family of origin ever has. Grace decided to track me down and drop by one day at random with her husband. It was awkward, but I didn't want to fight, so I spent some time with her. While she was around, mother-in-law stopped by and was just awesome. After about an hour of mother-in-law being there, Grace turned on me and said I didn't deserve the I had, and she stormed out, pulling her husband after her. She then contacted me on social media and ranted at me about being so smug about my mother-in-law when hers sucks and hates her guts and wouldn't do for her. I knew none of this. We had not talked in years before she showed up. I responded that it wasn't my fault her mother-in-law apparently sucks while mine is awesome. I said she shouldn't take it out on me. She called me a smug gloating. I blocked her, and she found an old Twitter account I had, and I got the email saying she had DM'd me more. Part of me wonders if saying her mother-in-law sucked and mine was awesome was just rubbing it in a little too much and a little too much of an awe. ATA. NTA, her mother-in-law probably hates her because her personality is horrible. NTA, you weren't disrespectful at all. Her mother-in-law is not your responsibility. Lol, sounds like she's just jealous and immature and can't bear that you have moved on to a successful life.